Hey everyone, and welcome back to FSi DFS. I'm McKinley412, and today we're going to be looking at this main early afternoon slate. I don't even know what to call it. It's the 8-game slate on DraftKings. Uh, Good weather, so we don't really have to be paying too much attention to that, but still, I do see a couple of 20 to 30% chance of rain. So maybe a pop-up shower here and there happens. I don't know, but make sure closer to lock you're checking out all the weather. Pretty ugly, the slate for the pitching, all things considered. I mean, there's a pretty big gap. You can kind of see where I'm kind of heading towards right now. The first thing that really sticks out is Kosman versus Wheeler. It's going to be pretty tricky to get both of them in there and really like your bats. If you throw both these guys in, you got 3.7K remaining. And you got Toronto on the slate. You have Atlanta on the slate, Philadelphia, Houston. These are those are the top stacks of the day. It is a very expensive slate in terms of the bats. There is one team, I'll just give it to you now, it's Milwaukee, who is grading really high. And I mean, they have some very, very cheap hitters. So, I mean, it is impossible that you could go, double ace, but it's going to be real tight, really quick. So it's going to be tough to get both these guys in. So you kind of want to separate them out. But it's tough. Gossman's going up against Detroit, who notoriously this season is just awful against right-handed pitching. So I give him a little bit of the edge there. However, Arizona, they strike out quite a bit as well. Gossman and Wheeler, they have near identical strikeout rates this season. They have near identical strikeout rates when you go over the past 2 seasons. So it's really tricky to fit both of these. Like I said, it's tough to get both these guys in, and there's really not much separating them. If you think Wheeler over Gossman, I can totally see that argument. If you think Gossman over Wheeler, I can totally see that argument as well. But you probably do want one of these guys in your cash build as your SP1. The next guy I would be going towards would be Valdez here for Houston. Valdez going up against Miami. Miami against left-handed pitching as a team strike out at a near 30% rate as a team. It is just absurd. They are way above everybody else in the league in terms of that metric. So Valdez, it would not shock me if he's able to get to one of his ceiling games, one of these 7 strikeout games where he's approaching 30 DK or more. And at 8.9K, I think, he is one of my favorite point per dollar pitchers on the entire slate. So I'm going to be having a lot of Valdez in my lineup here today. And it is possible to get a Gossman or Wheeler, Valdez, and then quite a few bats in the top tier guys. So Kosman and Wheeler, I just kind of mentioned them. You're going to be picking one of those guys. Valdez is going to be my next favorite. And then I got Montas rounding it out, going up against Cleveland. That's more, I don't know, it's more leftovers than anything. It's not that I'm excited about him at all. I did skip Eric Lauer here, 9.8K. He's not 9.8K material as of late. And he's going up against Washington, who has the lowest strikeout rate against left-handed pitching in the entire league. So you kind of neutralize his strikeout ability, and I just don't have any interest in him at that price tag. Then you kind of hit a big drop-off after these top 4 guys. Salary-wise, you're hitting Clevenger at 8.4K. Clevenger, I got him way down here in the rankings of the mid-tier just because he is coming back from injury. I want to say his triceps, but he only had 60 pitches last game out. So who knows how long his leash is going to be. And at that price tag, if he can't even get up to 80 pitches, I don't want really much of any of him at all. The guy that really kind of sticks out in that tier, and it's not even super exciting, is Charlie Morton. Morton's going up against Pittsburgh. He's got a great matchup. However, his form has just been awful lately. He's got 3 straight games with 4 earned runs against, 4 with 3 or more earned runs against. We're kind of looking for strikeout upside here. Morton is a guy, he is capable, as you can kind of see, he's capable of that higher strikeout game. And like I said, he's got a nice matchup. He's cheap at 7.8K. And really on this slate, there's not much else around him to really get excited about. So I could see, if you don't want to go, if you don't want to pay up for one of these guys, going down to Morton, I wouldn't do it in cash. But he's kind of the guy that sticks out in this mid tier just because there's not much else. Morton, Feldner for Colorado. He's performed pretty well. He's only had a couple of starts in the majors so far, but he can show that he does struggle at times. So he's more of a GPP for me at this point. And then Bumgarner going up against Philadelphia. Real tough matchup. Philadelphia actually hits lefties pretty good. So again, I'm not too interested in him there. It's a really ugly pitching slate. I think I started off with that. Outside of Wheeler, Kosman, Valdez, and maybe Morgan. So going down to the cheap tier, Briask going up against Toronto. No thanks. Thompson's shown he can do some things. He's got decent stuff. Like, he's not the worst pitcher on the slate. But going up against Atlanta, I just don't really have too much excitement about him. Plesac is probably my favorite guy down in this cheap tier, given his price tag, given his matchup against Oakland. 6.5K going up against Oakland, and given his strikeout ability. He had one of his ceiling games last time out, 26. Do I think he's going to get there again? No, not really at all. But if he can get me into like even if he can get me 15 to 20, he's going to pay off his salary for sure. And he's totally fine at that salary price. So Plesac is my favorite cheap play here. Corbin, do not want any of him. And then two remaining I got are Lynch and Wells. With Lynch, you're kind of looking for strikeouts, and that's mainly from the Baltimore end. Baltimore, I mentioned Miami is the highest strikeout team against left-handed pitching in the league by a wide margin. Second place, it's Baltimore. So you're kind of hoping that Lynch, at this price tag, he can have one of his 5 or 6 strikeout games, and he can get you to 14 or 15 DK points. If he can get you that, that's 3x salary, totally pays off it. But it's risky. It's certainly risky. None of these guys down here are by any means safe. And then I got Wells going up against Kansas City. Wells, he's kind of not really going to get you any strikeouts at all, but he can limit damage, as we've kind of seen throughout the season. He has 9-10 straight games with 3 or fewer earned runs against. So you're kind of looking for damage control, but not much upside with him there. So yeah, so that's kind of how the pitching's going to be looking. This is kind of where I have them ranked out. Pick one of Kosman or Wheeler. Valdez is probably my favorite point per dollar play and safe play on the slate. Morton, he kind of is the guy that sticks out in that mid tier, but it's not like great by any means. It's still a risky play given his recent form. And then everybody else is kind of gross. Lauer, I mentioned Washington, lowest strikeout rate, so I don't like him at that price tag. Garrett going up against Houston. Nope. Briask against Toronto. And then Patrick Corbin. We just know to pick on Patrick Corbin in DFS quite a bit here. So let's look towards the bats. I mentioned that salary is going to be a big issue just because it seems like we are paying up for pitcher on this slate. So there's like 5 teams that really stand out on this slate in terms of like offensive potential. I think it's Milwaukee, Atlanta, Philly, Houston, and Toronto. You could kind of throw Cleveland and Baltimore in there, but those are like your big 5. Atlanta is just priced out like crazy. Let me show you here. Going to Atlanta. Yeah, 6.4K, 6K, 5.553. Their seventh most expensive, or their 3rd cheapest player in their starting lineup, probably going to be close to 5K. So it's going to be near impossible to get an Atlanta second here unless you go with one of those cheap pitching options. Toronto, they are also extremely expensive with 3 guys over 5.7K. But Milwaukee, you kind of go to their hitters and you're like, wow, that's a major difference. So where I would start with them, Andrew Mccutchen, I think he's like my first guy that I was like putting into my line just of, the righty versus lefty matchup, where he is in the batting order, his price, everything. So Andrew Mccutchen was kind of like the first guy in my lineup. He's probably going to be in the cores today here at FSi, but 3.1K, Andrew Mccutchen. Love him. You can round him out, Milwaukee out with a couple of right-handed bats here. Urias, Adames, he's been struggling as of late, but again, it's Patrick Corbin, so who knows? Hunter Renfroe, he's a fine option as well. And what you could do with Milwaukee is you could go to get some of those Atlanta bats. Let me throw Urias into shortstop, because we can throw in Albies. Let's throw in Olsen, get that lefty-righty matchup going up against Thompson. And if I throw Urias at shortstop, 3.4 remaining, and that's with a Kosman and Valdez up at starting pitcher. So like it is impossible. They say you go cheap at pitcher or catcher, you can get another Atlanta bat in there. Maybe for Atlanta, maybe Harris is in the lineup today. He's always cheap. He's been hitting well, 2.9K. So it is totally possible to get Atlanta in there. And I think what you're going to be doing is you're going to be pairing it with Milwaukee. I'm talking about Atlanta a lot. They have the highest implied run total on the entire slate. I think they're close to 6. Like they're like a 5.8. They're super high. So that's kind of why I'm leaning towards Atlanta as one of the better offenses of the day, even though Thompson kind of has shown some ability so far this season as a pitcher. But still, Atlanta, Milwaukee, I think that's probably going to be a nice pairing where you could get both those bats. In terms of GPP, I'll be completely honest. I don't know where I'm going with GPP yet. I still need to think about this a little bit more just because, you know, it's gross. It would probably be starting off with Morton and kind of hoping that he does have one of those ceiling games that he can have. You could pick Kosman and Wheeler again. You could just fade both of them. Maybe say that, you know, like, yeah, they're going to have decent games, but I don't think they're going to pay off their price tags at over 10K. And you can throw Valdez in there. Or if you want to go like super crazy, go Morton and then kind of go with one of these cheap guys here. Maybe go with Plesac. He's just coming off a 27-point DK game. Maybe he has one of his ceiling games as well. Yeah, so maybe he has one of the ceiling games as well, going up against poor offense in Oakland. And now you're at 4.4 remaining. Now you could jam in a Houston stack. Maybe now you can jam in an all Atlanta stack. I don't even know. Let me see. Let's just see. Let's just throw in Houston going up against Garrett. We'll throw in a couple of their righties. We'll go Altuve. We'll go Bregman. Gurriel, he's always cheap. He's not a great hitter so far this season, but he's always cheap. So let's do that. Toronto, Bo Bichette has been insanely good at the plate lately. George Springer, we'll throw him in there. And 3.4 remaining. I mean, it's possible you can jam in all these bats, but your pitching does get really dicey really quick. But yeah, so for GPP, it could be saying, you know, let's fade Kosman, let's fade Wheeler. I don't see them having bad games, but maybe they don't pay off their price tag. Like if they want to get you 20 DK points, that's not paying off their 10K salaries at all. So like if Plesac has a 25-point game, doing the math, that's near 4x salary. That would be equivalent to Kosman and Wheeler having a 40-point DK game. So, you know, GPP is probably going to be fading the obvious chalk here that's on the slate for pitching, just with the limited options, and then just jamming in some of those big bats. I do like Baltimore. I'm just going to kind of talk about them just a little bit here. I do think that they're a place where you can go for some one-off bats for some savings, or if you do want to go with full stack with them, I do not mind that at all. These are some cheap plays. I'm not really too interested in any of these teams. Leverage, not so much. I'm really going to be sticking around these four, and then Toronto, Cleveland, and Baltimore. Even Washington, I'm not too interested in. But just as GPP, yeah. So that's kind of slate for today. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty ugly, all things considered as well, especially in the pitching aspect of things. But yeah, but so be it. That's a DFS. You're not going to have slates that you like. But you're also going to have slates that you love. So that kind of wraps things up. As always, thanks for watching. Good luck in your contest, and we will see you in the next video.